Every Sunday afternoon, Evelyn Harper waited by the phone. It was a ritual she had kept for years, a thread connecting her to the family she loved but rarely saw. At 76, living alone in her cozy little house in Asheville, North Carolina, those weekly calls with her daughter Marissa were the highlight of her week. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that honor the quiet strength within us all. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We love hearing from you. Have you ever overheard the truth when someone thought you weren't listening? Share your experience in the comments. How did you cope with the sting of unexpected betrayal? The phone rang right on time at 3 p.m., and Evelyn's heart gave a little lift. She picked it up carefully, her hands still a bit shaky from arthritis, and smiled softly as she heard Marissa's voice on the other end. "Hi, Mom," Marissa said, her tone polite but rushed as always. "Hello, sweetheart," Evelyn replied, trying to keep the warmth in her voice. "How are you all doing?" Marissa sighed lightly. "Busy, you know how it is. The kids have soccer practice, and work's been crazy, but we're managing." Evelyn nodded, even though Marissa couldn't see her. She had learned long ago that these calls were never about deep conversations or heartfelt sharing. They were more like check-ins, a way to say, "We're still here," without really connecting. "How's the weather up there?" Marissa asked, as if it was the most important thing. "Oh, it's been lovely. Sunny most days. A little cool in the mornings. Perfect for the garden," Evelyn said, her voice brightening. Gardening was her sanctuary now, a way to keep busy and feel alive. Marissa made a polite noise of interest. "That's good. How's the garden club going?" Evelyn smiled, picturing the small group of women she met with every Tuesday at the community center. "Oh, it's wonderful. We're planning a spring flower show. I'm working on some new arrangements with tulips and daffodils." "That sounds nice," Marissa said, though Evelyn could tell she wasn't really listening. "And how are your paintings coming along?" Evelyn's eyes lit up. Painting had become her passion after her husband, George, passed away 2 years ago. It was a way to express feelings she couldn't put into words. "I've been working on a series of watercolors of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The colors are so beautiful this time of year." "That's great, Mom. Really great," Marissa said, but Evelyn could hear the typing in the background, the distraction. The conversation drifted on, polite and surface level. Marissa talked about the grandchildren, Lila and Sam, and their latest school projects. Evelyn listened, proud but distant, feeling the gap between them grow wider with every word. After about 20 minutes, Marissa said, "Well, I should get going. Conference call in 5 minutes." "Of course, dear. Same time next week?" "Definitely. Take care of yourself, Mom." "You too, sweetheart. Love you." "Love you too." The call ended, and Evelyn sat quietly, the phone still warm in her hand. She looked around her small living room, filled with memories of a life once full of laughter and family. The walls were decorated with photos of George, the grandchildren, and her own paintings. But the house felt emptier now, the silence louder. Since George's passing, Evelyn's days had slowed down. The garden was her joy, and painting was her escape. She spent mornings tending to her flowers, afternoons in her little studio by the window, and evenings listening to old records they used to dance to together. Sometimes, she caught herself talking to George's photo, telling him about her day, about the garden club, about the grandchildren. It was silly, she knew, but it made her feel less alone. Her daughter's calls were a lifeline, even if they were brief and distant. Evelyn longed for more warmth, more connection, more love. But she had learned to accept what was given, to cherish the small moments. As the afternoon light faded through the lace curtains, Evelyn poured herself a cup of chamomile tea and settled into her favorite chair. She picked up her sketchbook and began to paint the soft glow of the setting sun over the mountains. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the colors of her art and the scent of her garden, Evelyn allowed herself to hope. Hope that one day her family would be closer again. Hope that love could still grow, even in the hardest soil. But for now, the weekly call was enough. It was a fragile thread, but it was hers to hold. And so, every Sunday, Evelyn waited by the phone, ready to hear her daughter's voice, ready to hold on to the family she loved, even from a distance. It was another quiet Sunday afternoon. Much like any other, Evelyn had just finished her weekly call with Marissa, the familiar routine of polite conversation and distant updates. She set the phone down on the kitchen table, the soft click of the receiver signaling the end of their talk. But this time, something was different. A faint murmur drifted through the speaker. Evelyn frowned, picking up the phone again. The line was still open. She heard Marissa's voice, but it wasn't the warm, caring tone she was used to. It was sharp, clipped, and cold. Did she really fall for it? Marissa asked, her voice low but clear. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. She recognized the voices of her son-in-law, Greg, and her two grandchildren, Emma and Jake, joining the conversation. Hook, line, and sinker, Greg replied, his voice dripping with contempt. She's completely clueless about what's really going on. Evelyn's hands trembled as she clutched the phone tighter. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Marissa's voice was harsh now. I'm so tired of pretending to care about her garden club and those silly paintings she does. Once we get her to sign over the house, we can finally move forward. Emma chimed in. We could put her in that assisted living place on Maple Street. It's affordable, and she won't even notice. Jake laughed. She's too stubborn to see it coming. Mom, Dad, we've got this all planned out. Evelyn sat frozen at the kitchen table, her teacup halfway to her lips. The warmth of the tea had long since faded, but the cold shock in her chest was sharp and real. For years, she had sensed something was off. The way Marissa's visits became less frequent, the subtle pressure to sell her house, the constant questions about her finances. But hearing it all laid bare like this was a different kind of pain. Her family, the people she had loved and trusted, were plotting to push her out, to take what she had worked so hard for. Tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes, but she blinked them away. She needed to think clearly. The voices continued, discussing money, insurance policies, and how to convince her to agree without causing a scene. She's too kind for her own good, Greg said. We just have to be patient. Evelyn's mind raced. How long had this been going on behind her back? How many times had she been used, her kindness mistaken for weakness? She felt a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. The betrayal cut deeper than she ever imagined possible. Slowly, she set the phone down, her hands still shaking. The room felt colder, emptier. For the first time in a long time, Evelyn realized she was truly alone. But beneath the hurt, a small spark of resolve began to grow. She wouldn't let them take everything from her, not without a fight. That night, Evelyn lay awake, the cruel words echoing in her mind. The family she thought she had was gone, replaced by strangers who saw her as nothing more than a bank account. She thought about George, her late husband, and how he would have protected her. She whispered his name into the darkness, drawing strength from the memory of his steady presence. By morning, Evelyn had made a decision. She would no longer be silent. She would protect herself, her home, and her dignity. And she would find a way to reclaim the life she deserved. The accidental overhearing was painful, but it was also a wake-up call. Evelyn knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, she felt ready to face it. Because sometimes, the hardest truths are the ones that set us free. After the shock of overhearing that cruel conversation, Evelyn found herself drifting into memories of a time when her home was filled with laughter, warmth, and love. It was hard to believe that the same family who had plotted against her now had once been the center of her happiest moments. She closed her eyes and pictured the old house on Chestnut Street, the one she and George had bought when they first married. It was a big two-story home with a wraparound porch and a garden George had lovingly tended. The walls were lined with family photos, smiling faces frozen in time. Sunday dinners were the highlight of every week. The house buzzed with noise as Marissa, Greg, and the children filled the rooms. George stood at the grill in the backyard, flipping burgers and telling stories that made everyone laugh. Evelyn remembered the smell of fresh-baked bread wafting from the kitchen and the clinking of glasses as they toasted to family and health. She could still hear the sound of Emma's giggles as she chased Jake around the living room, and Marissa's voice, softer then, full of warmth and care. Those were the days when family meant everything, when love was the glue that held them together. But time had a way of changing things. After George's passing, the house felt emptier. The laughter faded, replaced by silence that pressed in on Evelyn's heart. The once lively family gatherings became rare, then stopped altogether. Evelyn remembered the first time Marissa suggested she consider downsizing. "Mom, this house is too big for you now," she had said gently. "So it's a lot to manage on your own." At the time, Evelyn had agreed. The stairs were getting harder to climb, and the yard work was overwhelming. But she hadn't realized that suggestion was the first step in a plan to take control of her life and her assets. She thought back to the subtle signs she had ignored, the way Marissa and Greg would ask about her finances during visits, the increasing number of emergencies that required money, and the way the grandchildren's requests for help seemed endless. Evelyn had always wanted to believe the best in her family. She told herself they cared, that they were just trying to help. But now she saw those moments in a different light. She recalled the time she gave Marissa a check to help with a car repair, only to see the family posting pictures of a new vacation on social media days later, or when she lent money for Emma's college application fees, and later heard about expensive shopping sprees. The betrayal stung deeply because it wasn't just about money. It was about trust, respect, and love, things she had given freely, only to be taken for granted. Evelyn's thoughts turned to George. He had been her rock, her protector. He had always stood up for her, making sure she was safe and cared for. She missed his steady presence, more than words could say. She remembered the night he was diagnosed with cancer, how they had held each other close, promising to face whatever came together. His passing had left a hole in her life that no one else could fill. In those early months after his death, Evelyn had leaned on her family. Marissa had been there, visiting often, bringing meals and helping with chores. But as time went on, those visits became less frequent, and the support faded. Evelyn realized now that the distance wasn't just physical, it was emotional. The family she had known had changed, or maybe she had just seen them more clearly. The contrast between the past and present was painful. The warmth and love she once felt had been replaced by cold calculation and selfishness. Yet even in the midst of this pain, Evelyn found a small comfort in her memories. They reminded her of what love could be and what she deserved. She thought about the garden George had planted, now blooming with spring flowers. It was a symbol of life and renewal, something she could nurture even in difficult times. Evelyn also remembered her paintings, the way colors and brush strokes allowed her to express feelings she couldn't say out loud. Art had become her refuge, a way to heal and find joy. As she sat quietly in her living room, surrounded by these memories, Evelyn made a promise to herself. She would not let the past be overshadowed by betrayal. She would honor the love she had known by protecting herself and building a new future. The road ahead was uncertain, but Evelyn felt a growing strength inside her. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the wisdom of her years and the courage born from heartbreak. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to hope, not just for reconciliation, but for a life filled with respect, dignity, and true connection. And with that hope, Evelyn began to plan her next steps, determined to reclaim her life on her own terms. The morning after that painful Sunday, Evelyn woke with a heavy heart but a clear mind. The betrayal she had overheard was like a cold splash of water, waking her from a long, trusting sleep. She knew she couldn't stay silent or passive any longer. It was time to take control of her life and protect what was hers. Her first step was simple but necessary. She picked up her phone and started blocking numbers, Marissa's, Greg's, even the grandchildren's. Each block felt like a small act of reclaiming her space, a way to build a wall around herself. It wasn't easy. She hesitated before blocking Marissa's number, the daughter she had raised and loved. But the pain of betrayal outweighed the fear of loneliness. Next, Evelyn called her bank. She explained to the customer service representative that she wanted to cancel all shared access to her accounts. For years, she had allowed Marissa and Greg to be authorized users on her credit cards and joint access to her checking account. She had trusted them to help manage her finances, but now she realized that trust had been misplaced. The bank representative was polite, but concerned. "Are you sure you want to do this, Mrs. Harper? It's unusual to remove family members from accounts." Evelyn's voice was steady. "Yes, I'm sure. I need to protect my finances." She also requested new credit cards and changed all her online banking passwords. It was overwhelming, but she felt a growing sense of empowerment with each step. After securing her finances, Evelyn reached out to her longtime friend, Margaret. They had met years ago at the garden club, and Margaret had always been a source of wisdom and support. "I don't know what to do, Margaret," Evelyn confessed over the phone. "I feel so lost, but I can't let them take everything from me." Margaret listened carefully and then said, "You need to talk to an attorney who understands elder law, someone who can help you protect your assets and your rights." Margaret recommended a lawyer she trusted, Ms. Helen Carter, a sharp and compassionate woman who specialized in elder care and financial protection. The next day, Evelyn made an appointment with Helen. Sitting in the lawyer's cozy office, surrounded by books and certificates, Evelyn felt a mix of nervousness and hope. Helen explained the realities of elder financial abuse, how it often happens within families, how it can be subtle and hard to prove, and how many seniors suffer in silence out of fear or shame. "It's more common than people realize," Helen said gently, "but there are legal tools we can use to protect you. We can set up a revocable trust, update your will, and establish powers of attorney that name someone you trust, someone other than your daughter or son-in-law." Evelyn nodded, absorbing every word. She realized how little she had known about these protections before. Helen also talked about healthcare directives and how important it was to have clear instructions about medical decisions, especially when family relationships were complicated. By the end of the meeting, Evelyn felt a sense of relief. For the first time in months, she had a plan, a way to safeguard her future. Back at home, Evelyn began organizing her important documents, bank statements, insurance papers, property deeds. She made copies and stored them in a secure box. She also started keeping a journal, writing down every phone call, every visit, and every request for money. Helen had advised her to document everything in case she needed evidence later. The process was exhausting, both physically and emotionally. Evelyn often felt overwhelmed by the details and the weight of what she was facing. But she reminded herself that this was necessary. This was her life, her dignity, and her legacy. One afternoon, as she sat in her garden, Evelyn felt a small but steady flame of strength growing inside her. She was no longer the quiet, trusting woman who waited by the phone every Sunday. She was becoming a protector of herself, a guardian of her own future. She thought about the garden club ladies and how they had always admired her resilience. Maybe it was time to share her story with them, to raise awareness about elder abuse and the importance of standing up for oneself. Evelyn also realized she wasn't alone. There were resources, people who cared, and a community ready to support her. That evening, she called Margaret to thank her. "I feel like I'm finally taking back control," she said softly. Margaret smiled through the phone. "You're stronger than you know, Evelyn. This is just the beginning." As Evelyn prepared for bed, she looked around her home, the paintings on the walls, the flowers blooming outside, the familiar ticking of the old clock. This was her life, and she was determined to protect it. She knew the road ahead would have challenges, but she was ready. With each step she took, Evelyn was reclaiming her power, her peace, and her future. And for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. It didn't take long for Evelyn's family to notice the changes. The blocked phone numbers, the canceled credit cards, the sudden silence from her side. It all sent ripples through their lives, and their reactions came fast and hard. The first to call was Marissa. At first, it was just one call a day, then two, then more. Evelyn's phone buzzed constantly, filling her with a mix of anxiety and resolve. "Mom, please, we need to talk," Marissa pleaded on one of the calls. "I don't understand why you're shutting us out." Evelyn's heart ached, but she kept her voice calm. "Marissa, I'm protecting myself. I need you to respect that." But Marissa's tone shifted quickly, slipping into guilt. "After everything we've done for you, how can you do this? We're family. We're supposed to help each other." Evelyn took a deep breath. "Helping each other doesn't mean taking advantage, Marissa. I love you, but I have to set boundaries." The calls became a tug of war. Marissa's voice was sometimes soft and hurt, other times sharp and demanding. She tried every angle, pleading, accusing, even threatening to cut off contact with the grandchildren. Evelyn felt the weight of it all. The love she had for her family clashed with the pain of their betrayal. But she knew giving in would only make things worse. Then came the visits. Emma and Jake showed up at her door, smiling sweetly, but with veiled requests. Emma asked about a loan for a new car, while Jake mentioned tuition fees and a business idea that just needed a little boost. Evelyn listened carefully, her heart torn. She wanted to help, but she also saw the pattern, the endless demands, the promises that never seemed to be kept. One afternoon, Emma lingered after a visit, admiring Evelyn's Waterford crystal vase. "That's beautiful, Grandma," she said, her eyes lingering a little too long. "It would look perfect in our dining room." Evelyn's stomach tightened. She remembered how some of her precious belongings had quietly disappeared over the years, ending up in her daughter's house. "I'm glad you like it," Evelyn said gently, "but it's very special to me." Emma's smile faltered, and she quickly changed the subject. Evelyn realized that setting boundaries wasn't just about money. It was about protecting her dignity and her home. The emotional struggle was exhausting. She often felt torn between wanting to believe in her family's love and facing the harsh reality of their actions. Some days, she questioned herself. Was she being too harsh? Was she overreacting? But then she remembered the cruel words she had overheard, the plans to push her out, the way they had laughed at her expense. No, she told herself firmly. This was about survival. Evelyn found strength in small victories. Each time she said no to a financial request, she felt a little more in control. Each time she refused to let guilt dictate her decisions, she reclaimed a piece of her peace. She also leaned on her friend Margaret, who reminded her that love should never come with conditions or price tags. "Family isn't just about blood," Margaret said one afternoon over tea. "It's about respect and kindness. You deserve that, Evelyn." Evelyn began to see her situation more clearly. The toxic patterns she had endured for years were not her fault. She was not weak or foolish. She was brave for standing up. The hardest part was accepting that some relationships might never be what she hoped for. That love, in her case, had been conditional and self-serving. But Evelyn refused to let that define her. She started focusing on the relationships that brought her joy, the garden club friends, her new neighbors, and the community at the senior center. Her family's anger and confusion were painful, but Evelyn knew she was building a foundation for a healthier, happier life. She was learning that setting boundaries was not about pushing people away. It was about protecting herself so she could be whole. And in that, she found a quiet kind of freedom. Evelyn's journey was far from over, but with each step, she grew stronger, more certain, and more determined to live life on her own terms. No matter what her family said or did, she was no longer their victim. She was her own protector. After weeks of emotional turmoil and setting firm boundaries with her family, Evelyn felt a deep need for something new, something that could fill the growing quiet in her life with warmth and meaning. One afternoon, while watering her tulips, she noticed a flyer pinned to the community bulletin board at the local grocery store. It was an invitation to join the Asheville Senior Center's weekly art class and book club. Evelyn hesitated at first. She hadn't been to a social gathering in months, and the thought of meeting new people felt both exciting and a little scary. But something inside her nudged her forward. Maybe this was the fresh start she needed. The following Tuesday, she walked into the senior center, a modest brick building with large windows that let in the afternoon sun. The art room was bright and welcoming, filled with easels, paints, and canvases. A small group of people were already there, chatting softly and setting up their supplies. Evelyn took a deep breath and introduced herself. The group welcomed her warmly, and she felt a flicker of belonging she hadn't experienced in a long time. The instructor, a lively woman named Joan, encouraged everyone to paint whatever inspired them. Evelyn chose to work on a watercolor of the garden outside the center, a patch of wildflowers and tall oaks that reminded her of home. As she painted, she noticed a man sitting nearby, carefully sketching a jazz musician playing a saxophone. He looked up and smiled. "Hi, I'm Harold," he said, his voice gentle and kind. "Evelyn," she replied, returning the smile. Harold was a widower in his late 70s, with silver hair and a calm presence. They quickly discovered a shared love of jazz music and gardening. Harold told her about his small vegetable garden at home, and Evelyn shared stories of her tulips and roses. Over the next few weeks, their friendship blossomed slowly. They met regularly at the art class, exchanged books from the book club, and sometimes shared coffee after sessions. Harold's easy laughter and thoughtful conversation brought a lightness to Evelyn's days. One afternoon, Harold invited Evelyn to a jazz concert at a nearby cafe. The music was soft and soulful, filling the room with warmth. As they listened, Evelyn felt a joy she hadn't known in years, a feeling of being seen and appreciated for who she was. Their friendship wasn't rushed or pressured. It was a gentle companionship built on shared interests and mutual respect. Evelyn found herself looking forward to their time together, feeling less alone and more alive. The senior center became a new kind of home. Evelyn joined the book club, where lively discussions about novels and poetry sparked her imagination. She volunteered to help organize the monthly art exhibitions, proud to share her paintings with others. Through these new connections, Evelyn began to rebuild her sense of community. She realized that family wasn't just about blood. It was about the people who chose to be there, who offered kindness and support without conditions. One morning, as she tended to her tulips in her small garden, Evelyn thought about how far she had come. From the pain of betrayal to the hope of new friendships, her life was changing in ways she hadn't expected. She felt grateful for Harold's steady presence, for the laughter of new friends, and for the chance to rediscover joy. Evelyn knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but she was no longer walking it alone. With each brushstroke, each shared story, and each new connection, she was painting a brighter, fuller picture of her life. And for the first time in a long time, Evelyn felt truly hopeful about the future. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when Evelyn heard a knock at her door that made her heart skip. She wasn't expecting anyone, especially not her daughter Marissa and the rest of the family. But there they were, Marissa, Greg, Emma, and Jake, all standing on her porch, faces tense and eyes full of questions. Evelyn took a deep breath and opened the door. "Hello," she said calmly, though her hands trembled slightly. Marissa stepped forward, her voice sharp but controlled. "Mom, we need to talk. This silence, the blocked calls, it's tearing us apart. Why are you shutting us out?" Evelyn looked at each of them, steady and composed. "I'm not shutting you out, Marissa. I'm protecting myself." Greg crossed his arms, his expression hard. "Protecting yourself? You're cutting us off and refusing to help. We're family. We thought you cared." Evelyn's eyes softened, but her voice remained firm. I do care. But caring doesn't mean I have to give until I'm empty. I've been taken advantage of, and I won't let that happen anymore. Emma's voice was shaky but angry. We've always been there for you. We've helped you when you needed it. Evelyn shook her head gently. You've helped yourselves more than me. I've given money, possessions, and trust. And I've been met with lies and disrespect. Jake stepped forward, frustration clear in his voice. We're just trying to keep the family together. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Evelyn took a steadying breath. Family isn't just about blood or convenience. It's about respect, honesty, and love. I've been patient for too long, hoping things would change, but they haven't. Marissa's eyes flashed with hurt and anger. You're accusing us of betrayal. That's not fair. It's not an accusation, Evelyn said quietly. It's the truth I overheard. The plans to push me out, to take my home and my money. The way you spoke about me when you thought I wasn't listening. The room fell silent. The weight of Evelyn's words hung heavy in the air. Greg's jaw tightened. Maybe you misunderstood. Evelyn shook her head. No, I didn't. And I won't pretend anymore. Marissa's voice cracked. We love you, Mom. We just want what's best for you. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. If love means controlling me, taking from me, and disrespecting me, then I don't want it. The grandchildren looked down, the tension thick between them all. Evelyn continued, her voice steady and clear. I'm setting boundaries. No more financial requests. No more manipulation. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be based on respect and honesty. Marissa's face twisted with frustration. You're making this impossible. No, Evelyn said firmly. I'm making it necessary. The confrontation was painful, raw, and honest. It was the moment Evelyn had feared but also needed. She was no longer the quiet, compliant mother. She was a woman reclaiming her dignity and her life. After a long pause, Marissa spoke again, softer this time. Can we find a way to move past this? Evelyn looked at her daughter, her heart aching but resolute. Maybe someday, but not like this, not without change. Greg nodded reluctantly. We want to fix this. Evelyn gave a small, sad smile. Then start by respecting me. As they left, the house felt both emptier and freer. Evelyn closed the door and leaned against it. Tears finally spilling over. It was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt she was truly standing on her own. After the difficult confrontation with her family, Evelyn knew it was time for a fresh start. The house on Chestnut Street, once filled with memories of laughter and love, now felt like a place where the past weighed too heavily. She needed a new home, a place where she could live on her own terms, surrounded by people who valued her for who she was, not what she could give. With the help of her friend Margaret and her attorney Helen, Evelyn began exploring retirement communities in Asheville. She wanted a place that offered more than just a roof over her head, somewhere vibrant, welcoming, and full of life. One afternoon, she toured Oakwood Gardens, a lively community with bright art studios, beautiful gardens, and a calendar full of social activities. The moment she stepped inside, Evelyn felt a spark of hope. The residents greeted her warmly, and the staff showed her around with genuine kindness. The art studio was filled with natural light, easels set up near large windows, overlooking a garden, bursting with colorful flowers. Evelyn imagined herself painting there, surrounded by others who shared her passion. The community garden was another highlight. Rows of vegetables and flowers were tended by residents, who chatted and laughed as they worked. Evelyn pictured herself planting tulips and tomatoes, feeling the earth between her fingers. She also learned about the book club, yoga classes, and weekly jazz nights, activities that promised connection and joy. After careful thought, Evelyn decided to make Oakwood Gardens her new home. Moving day was bittersweet. She packed her belongings with care, choosing the paintings, photographs, and keepsakes that meant the most. She said goodbye to the old house, knowing it was time to let go. Her sister, Joan, helped with the move, offering steady support and encouragement. "You're starting a new chapter, Evelyn," Jones said as they arranged furniture in the cozy apartment. "And it's going to be a good one." Settling into Oakwood Gardens, Evelyn quickly found a rhythm. She joined the art class, where Joan, the instructor, welcomed her with open arms. Painting in the bright studio, Evelyn felt her creativity bloom again. She reconnected with Harold, who had also moved into the community a few months earlier. Their friendship deepened as they shared dinners, garden walks, and quiet evenings listening to jazz records. Harold's gentle presence was a balm to Evelyn's soul. They laughed together, shared stories, and supported each other through the ups and downs of their new lives. Evelyn also made new friends. Margaret, a retired teacher with a sharp wit, Carlos, a widower who tended the community garden with pride, and Elaine, a former dancer who led gentle yoga classes. These friendships were different from the ones she had known before. They were built on mutual respect, kindness, and shared interests, not on obligation or expectation. Evelyn found joy in simple pleasures: morning coffee on her balcony, painting the sunrise over the mountains, volunteering to teach art to local children, and attending book club discussions that sparked her imagination. She felt a renewed sense of purpose and belonging. One evening, as she sat on her balcony, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Evelyn reflected on her journey. The pain of betrayal and loss had been deep, but it had also led her to this new beginning. She realized that life didn't end with hardship. It could be a chance to grow, to heal, and to rediscover joy. Evelyn smiled, feeling a quiet strength within her. She was no longer defined by the past or by the expectations of others. She was free to live fully, authentically, and on her own terms. At 76, Evelyn was embracing a life rich with possibility, surrounded by friends who loved her for who she was. Her story was one of resilience, self-love, and hope, a reminder that it's never too late to start over. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Evelyn knew that this new chapter was just the beginning of a beautiful journey. As Evelyn settled into her new life at Oakwood Gardens, she often found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. From the painful betrayal she overheard to the strength she found in setting boundaries, her story was one of resilience and hope. She thought about the woman she had been, quiet, trusting, and sometimes too willing to give without expecting much in return. And she thought about the woman she had become, strong, wise, and determined to live life on her own terms. Evelyn wanted to share her story, not just for herself, but for others who might be going through similar struggles. She knew that many people, especially women her age, faced challenges with family, loneliness, and the fear of being taken advantage of. Her message was simple but powerful. You are worthy of respect and love, no matter your age. It's never too late to set boundaries and protect yourself. Your life is valuable, and you deserve to live it with dignity and joy. Evelyn hoped that by sharing her experience, she could inspire others to find their own strength, to recognize when it's time to say no, to seek help, and to build a life filled with genuine connections. She also wanted to remind everyone that family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes, the family we choose, the friends, neighbors, and communities that support us, can be the most meaningful. As she looked out over the garden from her balcony, Evelyn felt grateful for the new friendships, the creative outlets, and the peace she had found. She knew the road ahead would still have its challenges, but she was ready to face them with courage and grace. Now, Evelyn invites you, dear viewer, to reflect on your own journey. Have you ever faced a moment when you had to stand up for yourself, when you had to protect your heart and your home? How did you find the strength to do so? Please share your story in the comments below. Your experiences might be the light someone else needs to see. Together, we can create a community of support, understanding, and empowerment. If Evelyn's story touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of resilience, hope, and new beginnings. Remember, no matter where you are in life, you have the power to reclaim your story and live with dignity and joy. Thank you for watching, and may your journey be filled with strength and love.